Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media, from Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Shamaria Jackson. We have a lot to cover in today's social media news, from everything that you need to know about the stimulus check. JCPenney is officially filing for bankruptcy. DeAndre Baker has officially turned himself in, how the NFL is planning on voting on hiring more minority general managers, and everything that you need to know about the Nelly versus Ludacris Instagram battle. All of that and more on today's news. Stick around. Hey guys, so here is our very first subject. In my last podcast, I was talking to you guys about how Nancy Pelosi and some of the House of Democrats were wanting to increase the COVID-19 relief by $3 trillion, and they were going to call it the relief bill. Okay, and remember how I told you on Friday, May 15th, that they were going to vote on whether or not they should increase that relief plan from $2 billion, which was the CARES Act, and move it on up to $3 trillion and make it the relief plan. Okay, so it comes back that Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives has passed the $3 trillion bill for the COVID-19 relief, despite opposition from President Trump and Senate Republicans. So what was once considered a dead on arrival has now been approved by a vote of 208 to 199. 14 Democrats voted against the bill and 1 Republican voted for it. The bill made history as the largest relief package in United States history, which includes funding for state and local governments, coronavirus testing, and another distribution of payments to Americans. Okay, so there's a couple of things that is different. Okay, so this time around, the rules for the $1,200 check has changed a bit, but for the good. Single filers would still get $1,200 and $2,400 for joint filers, but filers would also be eligible for $1,200 per dependent, but filers can only claim 3 dependents for the money. In addition to getting the bill passed, Democrats also approved remote voting by proxy and blocked GOP's push to ban undocumented immigrants from receiving stimulus checks. The new relief bill will also include a $200 billion HEROES Fund, which will provide medical workers with hazard pay, and a $175 billion bill will go towards rent and mortgage. Okay, so that's not all. The New York Post reports that the bill will also extend unemployment $600 per week federal boost in unemployment insurance payments through January 2021. Currently, the boost continues through July of 2020. $10 billion will fund boosts in food stamps, a $25 billion bailout for the Postal Service, $3.6 billion for state election offices, and $5.5 billion for providing more high-speed internet to libraries and homes. Health insurance programs and the Senate will also get a piece of the new bill as well. And just so you guys know, the federal, state, and local tax is called SALT. That's the abbreviation for them. So if you ever go and you read something and they are talking about salt, not the food salt, not the condiment salt, but actual, like, in the government, they're talking about SALT. They're talking about the federal, state, and local tax, okay? So back on to business. The deduction for 2020 and 2021. Okay, so going back to what I was saying, the bill pays to relieve wealthy residents of high taxes by taking away the $10,000 cap on the federal, state, and local tax deduction for 2020 and 2021. The bill will also allow banks to work with cannabis in states that have legalized its use. So if you're in Colorado or if you're in California, there are banks that will work with you and specifically your business or wherever you handle, that kind of stuff, as long as it's legal. So how do I feel about this situation? Obviously, I'm happy because there's tons of people who need more help, okay? Tons of not only regular people, but for business owners as well. So I think this works as a good thing. There's people who have probably never seen themselves in this kind of position, waiting for the government to give them a check or waiting for food stamps or other certain things. So what I like about this is that it gives you insight on what some people have to deal with. Not everyone is as blessed. So it's bad that this COVID-19 has, made people lose their jobs, made people wonder where their next meal is going to come from, feel as if maybe this is a handout from other people. But at the same time, this gives people insight on what some people has had to do before this coronavirus. Many times we have seen people look down on people who were waiting for a check from the government. Look down on people who had to get food stamps in order to pay for food for their family. Okay, so many times there were people that looked down on them. But I feel like this coronavirus has opened up many people's eyes and hopefully changed a lot of people's perspectives on these people, okay? What I am worried about, however, is will this relief plan backfire on people? And what I mean by that is, will people end up having no choice but to pay taxes on it, which will sort of create a ripple effect, I guess you can say? I just wonder if a tax will be put on everyone for 2020, or, what will the repercussions be for this relief plan? Because remember, I told you some podcasts ago that every action has a reaction. Okay, so what exactly do we have to face in order to afford this $3 trillion relief plan? Like, what are the setbacks that we are going to have to endure after this coronavirus pandemic is done, after we get out of quarantine, after people go back to their businesses? What is the next step? That is going to be my question. I just feel like nothing you receive is free. So how exactly are we going to deal with that? Also, my next question would have to be, I guess it goes back into my other question, which was, what are the repercussions? What do we have to deal with because of this relief plan? Yes, they're saying it's a relief plan. It sounds nice. But to me, this sounds like a nice slice of cake. Or no, this sounds like a nice piece of chocolate on the counter, okay? And you're like, man, this chocolate looks good. You go, you eat the chocolate, and then like not even 15 minutes later, you're on the toilet because now you realize that that chocolate is a laxative. So what are the repercussions? Like, what do we have to deal with? It sounds too good to be true. Now, given this might be something that the government is like, you know what, this is for you. We want to help you. We want to help your families. We want to help, our fellow Americans make it through, because this time has not been easy. Okay. This is something that has never happened. This is something that has made United States history. But at the same time, I do have to wonder, what are my repercussions? Do I have to pay a bill? Do I have to work a little extra? Do I have to take a pay cut? Like, what do I have to deal with? What is going on here? So it sounds really good, but what are we going to have to give up in order to receive this relief plan? What do you have to save up for just in case someone tries to slip the rug from under your feet? So don't get me wrong, this sounds really good, and I really like everything that Nancy Pelosi and the House of Democrats have done for this $3 trillion relief plan to better help those who are in need because of this coronavirus. But I have to wonder, what aren't you telling me? I guess I'm one of those people who likes to hear the good and the bad. I would rather you tell me the bad news first and then tell me the good news so I can prepare myself for what is to happen in the future. So, with that being said, that is the end of this very first segment. In the next segment, I'm going to talk more about the stimulus check and everything that you need to know about your upcoming stimulus check. All of that coming up right after this break. Stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Welcome back. So before that break, we were talking about how the House has approved the $3 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, which includes new rounds of payments and more. But I was also talking to you guys about the benefits that $3 trillion bill will hopefully give to people all over the United States. But I was also a little weary because I just feel like there's something that they're not telling us. This sounds really good and it sounds really great, but I need to know the repercussions. I need to know what are the downfalls that many Americans, many people are going to have to face because of this new relief plan. And I went on a whole spiel about that, but in this segment, I wanted to talk about how the IRS has announced that more stimulus checks are on the way. However, they have explained that your check may not meet your expectations. According to Fortune, the IRS stated this past Monday, May 11th, that they sent out 130 million stimulus checks and that more are on the way. The agency explained in a release several reasons why people may have expectations of receiving a certain amount in their check and ended up receiving less than they hoped or more than they should have. The top reason for your check amounting to less or more than expected is because the IRS is basing their decision on old information. This could have occurred because you didn't file a 2019 return, or if you did file, it wasn't processed during the time that the IRS calculated your stimulus check. This would lead the agency to use the information from your 2018 return as default. The top reason for your check amounting to less or more than expected is because the IRS is basing their decision on old information. This could have occurred because you didn't file a 2019 return, or if you did file, it wasn't processed during the time that the IRS calculated your stimulus check. This would lead the agency to use the information from your 2018 return as default. Changes including higher or lower income and the birth or adoption of a child would not have been calculated. The IRS stated on their website, quote, "In many cases, however, these taxpayers may be able to claim an additional amount on the 2020 tax return they filed next year. This could include up to an additional $500 for each qualifying child not reflected in their economic impact payment," end quote. Another possibility for the amount you received being different from your expectations could be a disparity in whether your dependent claims was eligible for the child credit of $500. In order to claim the credit, the taxpayer has to be related to the child, reside within the same household for more than half of the year, and provide at least half of their support. Also, keep in mind, parents who are not married to each other and do not file a joint return cannot both claim their child as a dependent. Furthermore, college students do not generally qualify for an additional $500. So if you have a child who is in college, they may not qualify for an additional $500 credit. Okay, so you may not be able to put them, or you may not be able to receive money because they are considered your dependent. Another important factor to consider for your check being lower than expected. The IRS shared on their website that past due child support could have been deducted from your check or garnishments by creditors. It was recommended by the agency for everyone to keep the letter they received from the IRS after the check was dispersed. The agency stated, quote, "In many instances, eligible taxpayers who received a smaller than expected economic impact payment, aka EIP, may qualify to receive an additional amount early next year when they file their 2020 federal tax return," end quote. So what are my thoughts on this? There's nothing here that really raises a red flag for me. I think everything is just. If you didn't, to me, what I've gotten from that article was in 2018, you filed your taxes, but you didn't get around this year or just yet of filing your 2019 taxes. Okay, so in this case, they are at least willing to give you some form of payment to help you through this coronavirus. So they're pulling your information from 2018 without information from your 2019. In many cases, taxpayers, aka myself or yourself, may be able to claim an additional amount on the 2020 tax return if they file next year. So that could include up to an additional $500 for each qualifying child. Okay, so it was a lot that they said, but again, nothing to me really raised a lot of red flags. It was more of an understanding and an awareness of what's going on. So that's what I was talking about in the last podcast, which was, okay, thank you for giving me the good news. This piece of candy sounds amazing. What are my repercussions? Like, what's going to happen? And in this case, the IRS told you what the repercussions may or may not be. So it either raises a red flag for you if you are someone in this kind of predicament, if your eyes are more aware to that, if this affects you a lot more, or this helps you internalize this. Ask yourself if you are going through this, if you may go through this, and also, do you know someone, aka a family member or a friend, who may need information about this? That way you can spread the news. And speaking of spreading the news and helping out those who you know may have to face this, JCPenney's has filed for bankruptcy, and many stores will end up closing some of their locations. We're going to talk about them right after this break. Stay tuned.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to our third segment for today's social media news. In the last segment, I talked to you guys about how the IRS kind of looked out for you guys and told you guys what to expect if you filed for the 2018 tax return but did not get around to filing for the 2019 tax return. There may be a lower or higher check depending on if you did or did not file in time. They also gave you on some things to expect or to be aware of if your check tends to be lower or higher. Okay, so what I liked about that is the fact that that gave people insight on what to look for. You know, whether you are someone who has to deal with this certain unfortunity, or if you know someone, whether it's a family or a friend. And I was also going to tell you guys about how JCPenney's has filed for bankruptcy and how many of the stores will have no choice but to close their location. So if you are someone who shops at JCPenney's frequently, or if you were like me and you happen to work, I used to work at JCPenney's, so I know a lot about the industry. Or if you know a family or friend who has worked for JCPenney's or who shops at JCPenney's, you might want to listen closely to these details. JCPenney's has said in an announcement that they have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and will close some retail locations. The major retailer was struggling prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the bankruptcy was confirmed earlier by CEO Jill Saltillo. She said the decision to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy was difficult due to several retailers having similar experiences due to the pandemic. She stated, quote, "As a result, the American retail industry has experienced a profoundly different new reality, requiring JCPenney's to make difficult decisions in running our business to protect the safety of our associates and customers and the future of our company," end quote. Until this pandemic struck, we have made significant progress rebuilding our company under our plan for renewal strategy, and our effort has already begun to pay off. While we had been working in parallel on oppositions to strengthen our balance sheet and extend our financial runway, the closure of our stores due to the pandemic necessitated a more fulsome review to include the elimination of outstanding debt, end quote. Currently, JCPenney's has 860 stores across the country, but like I said, some locations will shut down to the company's financial issues. An announcement of the closings are scheduled for the next upcoming weeks. So what are my opinions about this? This is a sad thing for me to see. JCPenney's and Macy's have always been like those two places where my grandma used to take my sister and my brother whenever we had to go back to school shopping. And I just have noticed that as the years went on, not a lot of people wanted to shop there, whether it's a preference or whether it's, how society has changed. It just, unfortunately, it took that plunge, I guess you can say. And it's a very sad thing for me to see. There are a lot of great deals that go on at JCPenney's, but unfortunately, there was just some things that happened that JCPenney's couldn't get up from. Now, it's a sad thing for stores across the country to end up closing. It's an even worse thing to see associates it's an even worse thing to see employees without a job. And I remember before then that JCPenney's was having a hard time, trying to keep up and trying to get their sales up. And I think that with this coronavirus, it just kind of hit them off the edge. So it's a sad thing to see them have no choice but to file bankruptcy. Now, as far as after the COVID-19 hit, because customers were not going into the store, because I know for a fact that JCPenney's was officially closed during this pandemic, there was no money going in. So if no money was going in, how are they going to be able to pay for anything? And then also because of that, a lot of employees for JCPenney's were put on furlough, meaning that they were temporarily laid off. So this could mean that people who were put on furlough are now officially laid off, depending on if the store is deciding on reopening or not, or if they're planning on, hiring those same people back at the same location. It all depends. But all of this was to save JCPenney's because JCPenney's has been around for a long time. In this case, I don't really see it as the CEO getting all of this money. I think she's doing everything that she can to save the company as a whole. She would hate to see JCPenney go down as Melrose. If you guys have ever heard of Melrose, it was a really big company and it went down. Down here in the South, Kmart was a huge thing, and then all of a sudden that went down. So you would hate to see JCPenney's go down as a Melrose, okay? So I don't think, maybe a part of her wants to save some kind of money, but a part of her wants to save this company. With that being said, I am going to close out this third segment. I just wanted to let you guys know that if you have someone who works at JCPenney's or if you shop at JCPenney's, just be full aware that some stores are closing. Many people are being laid off. So they are moving from furlough to officially being laid off. Okay. So when you're put on furlough, you're on a temporary layoff. Okay. And you could move from a temporary layoff to a full layoff. Okay. So just don't wait on, if you will be able to work back at JCPenney's again. Sometimes you just have to take the initiative and you have to look for work elsewhere. So I wanted you guys to know so that you are informing your friends and your family or whoever to, just be aware that some JCPenney stores are closing and to relay that information out to your loved ones. With that being said, this is the end of this third segment. In the next segment, we have some NFL news, some NFL mess that we are going to get into. Not all of it's mess, but majority of it is mess. All of that coming up right after this break. Stay tuned.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Before that break, we were talking about how JCPenney has filed for bankruptcy and how many of the stores will begin closing their locations. So just be aware and, letting your friends or family know that these stores are closing because of the bankruptcy. For right now, I wanted to talk about DeAndre Baker and how he has turned himself in. If you guys don't know who DeAndre Baker is, him and another football cornerback were involved in an armed robbery. Okay, if you don't know the story about that, they went to a cookout, aka a gathering, and they were gambling, and instead of having fun and eating food, they decided to pull out guns and rob people. Back into the story, DeAndre Baker, who was a cornerback for the New York Giants, has turned himself in and is following armed robbery charges. According to his attorney, Bradley Cohen, in a Instagram post, he urged people not to cast judgment while authorities sort out the matter. He stated, quote, "Police reports are just that. Reports of what was told to them or said to them. Court is what we use to then examine those reports, investigate those claims, and allow the defendant an opportunity to confront the evidence, not rush to judgment." End quote. DeAndre Baker is being charged with 4 counts of armed robbery with a firearm and 4 counts of aggravated assault. The incident took place in Merrim, Florida during a small gathering, aka a cookout, on May 14th. According to an affidavit released by the Miramar Police Department, Baker, Seattle quarterback Quentin Dunbar, and a third unidentified man were alleged to have threatened attendees at the gathering, with Baker reportedly brandishing a semi-automatic firearm. On Saturday, Cohen took to Instagram again and said he believes video evidence will exonerate his client. Cohen stated, quote, "We will be presenting the trove of evidence we have obtained over the past 3 days to the judge at the right time. 7 affidavits exonerating my client and video evidence." End quote. If DeAndre Baker is convicted of the said charges, he will face a minimum of 15 years for each charge. Okay, so keep in mind he has 4 charges of armed robbery. 4. And they're saying he's going to serve a minimum of 15 years each. So let's just say that he gets 15 years. 15 times 4 is 60 years. So he could face 60 years in prison. Everyone, DeAndre Baker is 22 years old. 60 years in prison. So by the time he gets out, that young man will be 82 years old if he is charged. So we're going to find out what has officially happened. What made this young man allegedly pull out a gun and begin robbing people, especially because he is a part of an American Football League, okay? He plays as a cornerback for the New York Giants, okay? So, I mean, he has money, so I wouldn't understand why he exactly decided to rob people, allegedly rob people. But hopefully we find that out. Hopefully, they get down to the bottom of this. I just hate, and I said this in my last podcast, I hate for someone who is so talented and so young, and someone who has a blessing like this, throw it all away for allegedly robbing people because they ended up losing a bet. They ended up losing, I think they were gambling and they ended up losing. So they ended up robbing people, allegedly. So I would just hate for someone so talented to lose everything. But speaking of DeAndre, there is another football player who got charged with something as well, and that's Washington Redskins Cody Latmire. And he was arrested for assault and illegal discharge and an illegal discharge of a firearm. So Cody Latmire is a wide receiver for the Washington Redskins, and he was arrested early Saturday morning in Douglas County, Colorado. According to ESPN, shots were reportedly fired inside a Colorado apartment. Reports say that a witness heard arguing and what appears to be gunshots. Latmire was taken into custody and booked on felony charges of assault in the second degree, menacing an illegal discharge of a firearm, and misdemeanor charges of prohibited use of weapon and reckless endangerment. One person was reported with minor non-gunshot injuries. The Redskins released a statement following the arrest. They stated, quote, "We are aware of the situation and have informed the NFL league office. We will continue to gather more information and have no further comment at this time," end quote. According to the Douglas County Sheriff's Department, Latmire posted a $25,000 bond, and he was released on bail. So what are my thoughts about Cody Latmire as well as DeAndre Baker? I just feel like they are so talented, and because they are so talented and the world was given to them, and, you know, things just are so great for these football players, people who see themselves on this high pedestal because people essentially praise them for having a talent, you know, for making it past all odds, or because, you know, they work so hard that many of them feel like they're invincible. They can beat the law. They can beat people. Essentially, they believe that they are above everything. And because they believe they are above everything, sometimes their head gets too big, okay? And unfortunately, many times, these are the fates that a lot of football players have to face. You have one being arrested for an alleged robbery. Then you have another one who was arrested for assault. All of them discharging a firearm in some degree. Either it's for Cody Latmire, who possibly this was a domestic disturbance, more than likely, and he pulled out his firearm to, you know, DeAndre Baker allegedly pulling out a firearm to rob people. This should be concerning, okay? Because many people look up to these young men as role models, and they're not carrying themselves as role models. Sure, people make mistakes, people do dumb things, but to pull out a firearm to rob someone because you lost a bet or because you're angry or your pride was messed up, that's not right. And I think a lot of these guys need to do a lot of self-reflection. I think a lot of these guys need to sit back and understand, you're not invincible. As quickly as you have gotten a blessing is as quickly as that blessing can be snatched away from you. So just being happy that you have received this blessing and understanding that this blessing will only last a certain amount of time. You can only be in the football league for a certain amount of time before something happens. So why would you lessen that blessing by doing something to get yourself arrested? Whether it's for robbery or whether it's for domestic disturbance or an assault. Why would you put yourself in that category? This is their lives at stake. Okay, this is your freedom at stake. That's the same thing that I was saying about DeAndre Baker. This is his freedom at stake. You cannot buy your freedom. Now he was someone who was so, I guess, big-headed that he forgot that in a snap of a finger, you could be behind bars and you no longer have freedom to do whatever you want. You had a blessing, a 1 in a million chance. You beat the odds, you made it in, and you're willing to let it all go because you decided to gamble and you decided to allegedly begin robbing people. For what the purpose was, no one knows. If he did or did not do it. So I'm going to stop talking about this. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about the NFL owners and how they will be voting on hiring more minority general managers and head coaches in the league with the new resolutions. With that being said, that is the end of this segment. I will see you guys in the next one.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Social Media News Podcast. So in this last segment, I was talking to you guys about DeAndre Baker. and how he has turned himself in because of the alleged robbery. And then I also talked to you guys about Cody Latmere and how he was facing assault charges. In this segment, I wanted to talk about the NFL owners and how they are going to vote on hiring and intensifying more minority general managers and head coaches in the league with new resolutions next week. So the National Football League is attempting to make a big change in the league and hire more minorities as head coaches and general managers. Just 3 months ago, Commissioner of the league, Roger Goodell, addressed the lack of opportunities of minorities when it comes to positions including head coaches and general managers at the Super Bowl. Goodell stated, quote, "Clearly, we are not where we want to be on this level. It is clear we need to change. We have already begun discussing those changes, what stages we can take next to determine better opportunities," end quote. According to the organization's official website, only one of 5 coaching vacancies during the last season was given to a person of color, thus making it the only 3 out of the last 20 openings to go to a minority. This caused for an immediate call to action to prevent this trend from continuing in the future. The league will now offer a pair of resolutions this Tuesday, May 19th, during the owners' virtual meeting in an attempt to level the playing ground. According to NFL.com, the first would remove the long-standing anti-tampering barrier that permits clubs to block assistant coaches from interviewing for coordinate positions with other clubs, even though having coordinate experience is typically the final and most significant step in becoming a head coach. The other would incentivize the hiring of minorities as head coaches or primary football executives by rewarding teams with improved draft slots. End quote. The league is also looking at further enhancing the Roney rule, which will double the number of candidates. Each team is required to interview for main coach and coordinate openings. The owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Art Roney II, spoke on this back in January in an interview with NFL Network's Steve Witch. He stated, quote, I think where we are right now is not where we want to be, not where we need to be. We need to take a step back and look at what's happening with our hiring process. The first thing we'll do as part of our diversity committee is really review this past season's hiring cycle and make sure we understand what went on and talk to people involved, both on the owner's side, management side, as well as the people that were being interviewed. End quote. Per the league's website, shall the resolution be voted on under league policy on equal employment and workplace diversity. It would change the current protocol in the league, which has been the goal for many years now. He also stated, quote, if a team hires a minority coach, that team in the draft preceding the coach's second season would move up 6 spots from where it is slotted to pick in the 3rd round. A team would jump 10 spots under the same scenario for hiring a person of color as its primary football executive, a position more commonly known as general manager. If a team were to fill both spots with diverse candidates in the same year, the club could jump 16 spots, 6 for the coach, 10 for the general manager, and potentially move from the top of the 3rd round to the middle of the 2nd round. Another incentive, a team's 4th round pick would climb 5 spots in the draft preceding the coach's or general manager's 3rd year if he is still with the team. That is considered significant because Steve Wilkes and Vance Joseph, 2 of the 4 African-American head coaches hired since 2017, were fired after 1 and 2 seasons, respectively. End quote. So here's a fun fact for you guys. During the start of the 2019 to 2022 football season, the league only had 4 head coaches and 2 general managers of color, and that was out of 32 teams. But a lot of it is, who you know, unfortunately. So you might go in and you might be highly qualified, but you might lose to a guy who plays golf with that other one. That's a connection, unfortunately. So I'm really happy that they're actually taking a step back and looking at who they are hiring and why they are hiring them. Because connections are good, but many people want they obviously want a Super Bowl ring. They want to win. They want to become champions, and at the same time, they want role models for these kids, okay? So we want more people of color in head football positions to show other kids that you can go in this position. And at the same time, changing up strategies to help a team win a championship. That is primarily the end goal. That's showing these people that they can do anything. On the 49ers, they have a woman football coach, and she is it. She has made history as the first woman. So, just showing these people that you can do anything, no matter your race or gender. And I think that's really what the NFL is trying to do, just showing different kids who are essentially our next generation that you can do anything you put your mind to. You can be a person of color as a head coach, or you can be a woman coach and help lead a football team to a championship and make history. So with that being said, that is the end of our 5th segment. In our next segment, we're going to talk about Nelly versus Ludacris, who won on this Instagram battle. Did you guys hear some hits? We're going to talk about all of that coming up right after this break. Stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is our last segment for today. We have talked about so much, from everything that you need to know about the stimulus check, the new relief plan that was approved for the $3 trillion relief plan that is going to soon take place. We also talked about how JCPenney was filing for bankruptcy and how many of its stores will be closing. We talked about DeAndre Baker turning himself in, as well as Cody Latmere being arrested for assault and how he was also bailed out, but how many of these NFL players have begun to think that they're invincible. We also talked about how the NFL will be voting on hiring more minority general managers as well as head coaches in the league. And finally, right now, I'm going to talk about Nelly versus Ludacris. Who won? What happened? All of that news that you need to know. So on Saturday, May 16th, Nelly and Ludacris went live on Instagram, and they brought back all of their classical hits. The hip-hop superstars Nelly and Ludacris went round for round in battle of hits, revisiting fan-favorite tracks that helped define the music landscape of the ages. They went toe to toe. At the top of the event, Luda and Nelly took the time to recognize each other's achievements and contributions to the culture, which was setting a positive tone for what was to come. We had Nelly, giving his praises out to Ludacris, and Luda giving his praises out to Nelly. We even got to hear a track that no one has ever heard, which was the Money Maker remix featuring Nelly. It was a track that was never released, but we got to exclusively hear it on that Instagram live. And let me tell you, I loved every moment of it. I told you I was a huge fan. Now, I might be a little biased in this. So many people are saying that Ludacris won because he wasn't having any technical difficulties, and they were saying that Nelly lost just because he was having technical difficulties. He was pulling a Teddy Riley. But he didn't have like a band or anything. So I'm going to defend Nelly, okay? Because I'm a Nelly fan. He didn't pull a Teddy Riley in the sense of having a live band or anything. The Wi-Fi was just messing up, okay? Sometimes technology does that. It becomes a booger. In this case, Nelly's Wi-Fi became his booger, and many people were getting annoyed by it. Unfortunately, it's just said to happen. They're saying because of that, Ludacris won. In my opinion, I think Nelly won. Okay. I like a lot of Ludacris's songs and I like a lot of Nelly's songs. But to me, I like the energy more coming from Nelly. I've always been a huge fan of Nelly. I've always liked all of Nelly's music. So to me, Nelly won. Okay. If you guys disagree with me, that's okay. Okay. That's okay. But anyway, according to Billboard, Ludacris had 5 top 100 number ones, whereas Nelly had 4. Ludacris had 18 top 100 top 10s, whereas Nelly had 14. Ludacris has had 56 top 100 hits, whereas Nelly has had 36. Billboard 200 number ones, Ludacris has had 4, whereas Nelly has had 3. Billboard 200 albums, Ludacris has had 11, whereas Nelly has had 10. For Grammy wins, Ludacris has 3, whereas Nelly has 3 as well. For United States album sales, Ludacris has had 14.5 million, whereas Nelly has had 22 million. For United States song sales, Ludacris has had 19.5 million, whereas Nelly has had 22.9 million. For United States on-demand streams, Ludacris has had 1.9 billion, whereas Nelly has had 2.6 billion. And that was provided to us by Billboard. Now, keep in mind, there are songs that I just really, really like. Both of these men are very talented. Both of these men have shaped my adolescent, teenage musical taste. So those are songs that I could go back and I can listen to for as long as I like. So I personally love the battles. I've been loving these Instagram battles, and I've said this before in a podcast. I have been loving these Instagram battles because it shows musical taste, and it shows that not all artists are always having an issue with one another. It brings praises. It gives each and every one of them their flowers, and it shows each of them that they are lovers of music. Okay. They understand that these people are artists and they understand, what they go through, but at the same time, it's giving them love, it's showing them that, their achievements have not gone unnoticed. And many times artists have gone unnoticed. Their achievements have gone unnoticed. So during that time period, they will be praised, but then when they don't become so popular, they're often kicked to the side. This Instagram battle, is a battle of showing each other the most praise. And I have to really give credit. I really have to give them credit on that. So with that being said, that is the end of today's Social Media News Podcast. I would like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review because that really helps us out. Also, be sure to follow us on all of our social media handles, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I would like to thank you, and I want you guys to have a good night, a good day, and everything in between. My name is Shamaria Jackson, and I'm signing out. Bye, you guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.